Good count so far?
Yeah.
So before we get started, how many of you guys have been watching our streams or, okay, quite a few of you. So I have something that it's very important for Kyle to wear for this panel that I brought with me. Some of you know what's coming.
I did not know this was coming, but I do now. All right.
If he's not going to cosplay 9S, he's going to wear the bow.
Has anybody here not played Nier Automata?
Oh,
ooh, okay.
We should probably not talk about
spoilers. We gotta be
spoilers
careful about spoilers then. Has anybody not played the first Nier?
Everybody's hands go up.
That's what I figured. That's okay. That's cool. It's not easy. There you go. That's another one. Drakengard. Who's played any of the Drakengard series? All right. Just curious. I haven't played any Drakengard yet.
I haven't either. We're filthy casuals.
I've done the first playthrough of the original Nier, and I haven't gone beyond that yet. But we finished Automata on Twitch. So I don't know what we're gonna talk about. It's probably Q&A.
Yeah, we can talk about the game. We can talk about working on the game.
We can talk about other stuff.
Yeah, we can do.
I think we're gonna take questions though. Do you have a microphone runner? Sweet!
Yay!
You're my friend.
And so, we should probably decide like what's the spoiler policy, considering there's a lot. How many of you have started the game and not beaten all the endings yet? At least all the main endings. Okay, so I feel like we should probably not talk about anything that's considered like a
no spoilers.
Spoiler
That's the rule. No spoilers. But you can ask questions and dance around the spoiler.
You can be like, what about the thing?
What about that thing that happens at that later point in the game? You can ask something like that.
Be creative with it, and we will try to figure out what you mean.
Not spoil with the answer. So let's go ahead and if you got a question, raise your hand. I see one up right there.
Can we talk about the fish?
Yes, of course.
Sure.
I feel like that's very widely known.
That's better.
That's your question. Okay.
I did, okay, so fun fact, you know how it says like aji okuta for the fish ending? There's aji, which is Spanish mackerel, and there's saba, which is Japanese mackerel. You can get both at a lot of sushi places. So one time I actually ordered aji, took a picture of it. I think I was 2B in the picture, I can't remember. And so I was like, see, it's actually aji. I'm not taking a picture of saba and being like, aji. I don't know, that's like...
It was an important distinction.
Yes, just like the bow is very important.
Yeah. 9S wears the pink one. In my head canon.
Does that mean Tubes wear the blue one, or they both wear the pink one?
No, it doesn't matter. 9S wears the pink one.
Okay. Well, in my head canon, 9S also drinks juice out of a sippy cup, for anyone who's seen it. Someone actually drew fan art of that after I said it.
That seems appropriate. Who has questions? Anybody? Here's a hand. Microphone coming around, just to help the people in the back here. We can totally hear you.
I can't do that.
Okay, so this was actually one of my favorite pastimes throughout the thing, and I was a casual streamer. I was just like, I found you randomly on YouTube. I was like, oh wait, Nier Automata, let me watch that. Did you ever, just for fun, just run around with no pants as 9S? Like, just make him explain and just have him run around? Because that was my favorite pastime. And you get an award for doing that too. So like, I was just like...
So for those who don't know, there's a self-destruct mechanic in the game. And when you do that, as either 2B or 9S, it blows half your clothes off. And you can continue to run around and play the game after you've self-destructed and blown all your clothes off. And there is an achievement for 9S that's not that I mind.
Yeah, so
he's not wearing any pants.
Whenever people get upset about the 2B achievement, I'm like, well, to be fair, there is a 9S achievement for walking around as 9S in little boy shorts, so
a little less scantily clad than 2B.
Fair enough, but
Who else? Oh, we got a few hands.
I saw the person in the orange shirt first.
Yeah.
Orange shirt. All right. Sorry
It's
about
around
that.
the camera.
The runners have to be very agile.
So unfortunately, this is the first time I ever heard your two voices in Nier Automata.
Oh, okay.
Is there anything you guys are working on right now in games?
In games
Or anything, really.
that we can talk about?
Well, let's see, what came out recently? I mean, we're both, of stuff that we're both in, I mean, it's not really newly released, but we're both in Fire Emblem Heroes. I play Erika and Katarina, and Kyle plays Alm and Soren. We're both in Disgaea 5. I'm Seraphina and you're
That was a little
Zeroken.
while ago, but yeah.
That was, it was a while ago, but I'm just saying if there's stuff you want to hear both
Yeah.
of us in is my point.
That's you did say that this was the only thing you've heard us in, or the first thing you heard us in. So
If it's not, this is the first time I've heard.
Sure.
Don't be like, oh, these are amazing voice actors. Let me find out
Thank
who
you.
these people are.
thank you. So we can go backwards in time as well as forwards. Fire Emblem Echoes for the 3DS has Alm in it as well. So
Yeah, I'm not in that one, but
Kira mentioned that.
I mentioned Heroes. 'cause
Yeah,
we're both in
right.
Heroes.
Stuff that we're both in. We're both in
Anime. aside from the two
anime,
games that I mentioned.
Gundam, Iron-Blooded Orphans.
Yeah, he's the main character. I'm like a couple side characters, but they're very cute.
Hey, Cookie and Cracker are important.
It's on Tsunami. Yeah, it's on Japanese only. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been on Tsunami.
Yeah, season 2 there's a new episode out tonight on
Maybe
Toonami.
it's holding out.
Toonami has the rights right now. There's a new show coming to Netflix called Be the Beginning in spring that I'm really excited about. That there's very little information on for the public, but it's going to be really cool. And I think the Nier crowd will dig that one.
What about Blame? Is that still on Netflix? 'Cause
Oh,
I
yeah,
feel
that
like
one- yeah.
we play characters that are a little bit similar to.
Yeah, we do.
Somebody was like, I liked you as Evil 2B in Blame.
Yeah, Blame or Blame, depending on who you ask on the
I feel
correct
like that's like
pronunciation.
so like.
That sounds.
It's one of the things that you
But
see on like the Weeb Simpsons Twitter account. If any of you guys follow that, it's like my favorite Twitter account right now. It's like something they'd make fun of on that.
But yeah, that's on Netflix. It's a film, an anime movie. I don't know. Check IMDb. I know there's a lot of other stuff that I'm forgetting. Who else had questions? You two had hands up here.
Just curious if either of you actually met Yoko Taro in person.
Oh, I
wish.
wish. Yeah.
No.
He noticed us on Twitter. Which
He
is
noticed
really cool.
you on Twitter.
But he followed you, right?
I don't think so.
I thought
maybe
he- yeah,
maybe he
he
did.
followed
Maybe
you.
he
I
did.
remember
Maybe I don't remember that. But yeah,
Because he likes girls.
And then how
true. He does.
the tweet where he noticed me and replied to me was, I posted like a stupid 9S meme, and that was the thing Yoko Taro. But I still remember it was said like, thank you for your cool voice. And I looked at my phone and I was like, wait, it could be, because sometimes people impersonate people on Twitter, so I was like, oh, maybe it's that. So I clicked on the name and it's like, no, this is actually Yoko Taro. And I screamed and I threw my phone across the room. That would have been cool if we had gotten to work with him. Imagine if he just showed up wearing the big Emil head.
Honestly, though, did he really have any reason to be present at English voiceover sessions? He doesn't speak.
That's why I was really
Much English at
surprised
all.
when he said like, oh, thank you for your cool voice. I mean, he could have
Yeah.
just been being polite, of course, but it was like, because I didn't even know if he'd heard our voices. You know, sometimes, a lot of times, like English voice casting is left more up to like the localization team, and sometimes the creators they're not even involved or like paying attention to that part or whatever. So I just thought that was really cool, regardless of whatever, however that came about.
And a lot of times, they pay about as much attention to the English localization as American creators do to localization of their, like, George Clooney movies in Germany or whatever, you know? I doubt that the executive producers.
Watch King of the
In
Hill dubbed
Hollywood.
in Japanese. It's amazing.
It sounds like it. But yeah, it was pretty special. I think I saw a hand up right here.
So this is more about your work. So has there ever been like a moment where you're in the room, you're recording your lines and everything like that, and then you just stop after you finish and thought to yourself, oh my goodness, I hope they aren't over there laughing at this.
I think you kind of have to throw away any self-consciousness when you're in the booth, because if you're getting self-conscious, then the performance isn't going to work a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with stuff that can be really silly, which there isn't too much in Nier that...
Yeah, I feel like it was a lot of really heavy...
Yeah. No, yeah. There's definitely stuff where you get done doing the take and then you go, what the... Did I just say? What does this mean?
I know for like the really emotional scenes in Nier, it was I just tried to really get into like the head of my character and stuff, so that when I'm reacting to certain sad things as 2B, it's like I'm actually like thinking as her in a sense. I don't know. I guess that's like one of my acting methods, is I try to like really get into the character's mind and, you know, how they would react and stuff like that. So I'm not thinking so much about me as an actor approaching it, but as the character.
Which I think is pretty important. But there are times where, because it happens so fast, the recording process, that there are times where we don't get a chance to see the line before we record the first take. Mm-hmm. And there are times on projects where I will read something and the line has maybe not been translated as well as it could have been, or something, and I'll finish, I'll get to the end of the line, or sometimes I won't get to the end of the line, and I'll just stop and be like, wait a second, what's going on? Can we go back? Can we look at the context on I don't understand what I'm saying.
I feel like my second take is the best, because it's like, oh, now I see what the line actually is. Because for those of you who don't know, basically pretty much all like voice acting for anime, games, that kind of stuff is cold reading. So we don't get the script. It's not like doing a play where you get the scripts to practice ahead of time. You know, obviously we're not memorizing our lines. So we go into the booth and we get the script then and there, and we just have to read it off the page and make sense of it, which is like a skill that I think is really, really important to develop if you guys want to get into voice acting, because it's what you're going to have to do. You don't have time to like think and study and make notes. It's like you just gotta look at it and go. So, you know, sometimes I'll read my first take and I'm like, oh, that totally wasn't what that line was supposed to be. Whoops, let me try that again.
Oh yeah. And that can be frustrating when you're dealing with a situation where they're on a tight deadline and they're trying to get it done quickly, and maybe they don't have as much time as you would like as an actor to go back and refine the performance. Or sometimes you're dealing with an engineer who just really wants to finesse that first take and make it work, and you're just like, wait, just let me try again. I promise I'll do better the next time and you won't have to do as much work.
Actually, kind of speaking of that, a sort of fun fact, 2B's opening monologue, that everything that lives is designed to end. We recorded that line, I think that was the first line we recorded, but then after we went back and recorded the whole game, they're like, okay, now that you like really have a grasp on her character, this opening monologue is really important because it's going to be the first thing that players hear, and you know, it's in like some of the previews and stuff, so it's like, why don't we go back and redo that just so it can be really like powerful? And I'm really glad that we did. I wish that on more media we got to do that, because sometimes it's like, I'll go through a whole series or a whole game where I spend a lot of hours with character and I'm like, wow, I really wish I could make that first scene where you see them stronger. So
I've heard a lot of voice actors talk about how there are characters that they feel like they always grow into the role, and the stuff that you see of or hear of their performance early on in the show or game may not be quite as strong as stuff that happens later, because they haven't fully gotten into the skin of the character yet. And I think that's absolutely true. But yeah,
we spent hours with these characters, many hours.
And I was gonna say, I think with Nier, that was one of those unfortunately rare projects where we had the time to really sink our teeth into it and make sure we were getting it right. More questions?
I have a question for you, Kyle.
Okay.
I was wondering if there was ever going to be another season of Seven Deadly Sins?
So first off, asking the actors, usually the last to know. As far as my memory goes, I think there is a second season of Seven Deadly Sins.
It's just a few episodes long.
Okay. People in the audience know better than I do. As far as I know, Helbram is not in it, but I don't know, and I don't know if they're dubbing it. And if I did, I probably wouldn't be allowed to tell you.
Yeah, usually the most we know as actors is like, they'll be like, hey, okay, now we're doing this thing, can you come in next week? Okay.
Yeah, and we have to sign non-disclosure agreements that let the marketing team take care of when to announce things like that, so.
And then also, could you say something in Ryota's voice?
Oh, Watari?
Yes.
Yeah, Ryota Watari. Let me think. Gosh, what's a line from Your Lie in April that just works by itself?
What would he say if he suddenly found himself in the Nier universe and little stubby robots were everywhere and androids?
That would be a very different world.
I know, but just to throw
I'm trying to think. He's hey, it's me, Watari. You know, something like that. I think that's one of his lines at some point. I don't know. I'm sorry. More questions.
Wow, you guys are enthusiastic. It always starts with that, like, only one person raises their hand for the first question, then
Now
everyone's
more
like,
questions.
I got a question. Yeah.
Okay, so I know you guys like went through all of Automata like on stream, but I guess if you had to say what was like the funniest moment that like happened on stream, and also what's your favorite quest?
Ooh. Well, the funniest moment that happened on stream was probably when we were doing the end credits playthrough. Some
Oh, I
of you
thought you were
saw
going to
it.
say something else. Never mind.
No, we were playing through the end credits sequence, and we did anime grunts.
Yo, that is okay. The internet will not let us forget.
Yeah. And we didn't.
I'm surprised no one's animated that
We
by
didn't-
this point.
I hope that never. Well, it didn't last very long because we realized pretty quick that what we were doing didn't really
But there's
work out
also
of context.
There's also a delay on the stream for people's comments, so when everyone was like, "Oh," we're like, "We see that later."
Yeah. That was not.
Yeah.
Not the best decision.
Oh, I do like how intense you were in the ending credits where you're trying to get all the things and everyone's like, "Take my energy, Kyle!" and just like spamming it, you're like, "Ah!"
Favorite quest.
Oh, I feel like there are so many good ones. I mean, I obviously like the little sister one where you can get the bows, but
I like the storyline of the escort quest. I killed them so many times, but I didn't really like playing through it.
the little machines putting on a play.
That one. Yes, the Romeo and Juliet. Yes, that's my favorite. That's my
Oh, and then
favorite.
I like there's the one where it's like, oh no, you actually have to break the game. You have to find the bug. So I was like trying to do it like, you know, you're
where
supposed
you
to.
have to
They're like, no, you have
break
to.
the hacking mini game. Yeah, that's a good one too. Who else? Oh boy. We're just gonna let him pick.
Yeah.
Favorite reaction between 9S and 2B in the game? Like, favorite interaction? I mean?
Favorite interaction between the two characters?
The time when I first call him Nines.
Oh yeah, that's a good moment. That's a good moment. I like that one.
It just breaks my heart every time it's like, well, you can call me Nines if you want. I'm like, that's okay. Oh, just your
Yeah.
little, I
Yeah.
love the way you talk.
Oh. And I also like, yeah. One affirmation will suffice. I like those too.
One affirmation will suffice.
Yeah.
And the whole the slave driver thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that line by itself. Couple of them, I don't know. More questions?
Well, I have to ask, out of all, like, your favorite, are there any out of context lines from Nier?
Favorite out of context lines?
I I don't know about lines per se, but there are definitely scenes where if you haven't played the game, you look, like I've watched some reaction videos on YouTube to like people seeing the little like robot orgy for the first time. They're like, what is this game?
That's a classic. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Because, I mean, we're so immersed in this world now at this point, having spent probably, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 40 hours of recording time in the booth.
You probably had more than I did, because I feel like Nines is a lot more talkative than Tubes.
He is. And then having played through the whole game start to finish, it's hard to divest yourself and think about stuff out of context, I think. My wife is holding her hand up over in the corner.
What's the line for our donation?
Oh, yeah, okay, out of context. It's a line that Ray Chase as Eve has. Just by itself is extra hard. In context, it's his conversation with Adam where he wants to go outside and play and instead of sitting and reading or whatever. And Adam's like, you have to study, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna study extra hard. It's still funny in context.
I feel like maybe some people donate just to hear that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was a stream where we had Ray on, and as well as Lucian Dodge and Erica Mendez, and Erica was just soliciting donations just to hear that sound bite over and over again. More questions?
You guys have both done multiple voiceovers in both anime and video games. Is there a difference in the process between the two?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We're actually going to be talking about that in more depth. We're doing a panel with Kyle Abear tonight called Voice Acting in Video Games. I believe it's at 5, and we're going to talk like more in depth about that difference. But
in this room, I think.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock.
But the quick answer is I would say for anime we are syncing everything to picture, so the timing is very, very precise. For games, like for example in Nier, when you see the cutscenes and stuff, we did have to sync those to picture, but a lot of the like more open world lines, we either didn't have timing restrictions or, oh, this can't go over 4 seconds, you know, something.
But you don't have to match internal mouth flaps.
Yeah.
But most games today, general timing guidelines don't matter quite so much anymore. I don't know why that is. It used to be that a lot of localization video game projects, it was like, all right, the Japanese was 4 seconds long, so the English has to be 4 seconds about. It can't go over 4 seconds. It can be a little bit under.
Yeah, I still get those occasionally, but I feel like there's a lot more where the only thing we have to time is if it's to picture.
If it's to picture. But most of the time, like Nier, I don't think we had. If it wasn't to picture, I don't think we had restraints on any.
I think just for the battle efforts,
maybe some of the efforts.
You know, when you have like a sword swing or like some kind of motion, that sound has to like kind of time out with that movement. So usually for something like that, we'll hear the Japanese and we'll either like copy it or do something in the same vein, because some of the sounds like, you know, like eh and duh, or whatever, it doesn't really like sound right in English, so then we'll kind of like maybe localize that a little, if you will, but you know, generally we try to keep in the same spirit.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the way that we did the battle efforts in Nier was Danny queued up, our engineer queued up like all of the Japanese fight sounds, because we needed like probably 20 different variations of how to swing a sword or something. So she just queued up all of the Japanese audio and left enough of a gap for me to do a take, just one take, and hit go. So I'd hear Japanese and I'd just imitate it, and if it was too Japanese, then I'd have to change it a little bit.
The sick is the big one. It's like we don't really do.
We don't do that one.
I did have on another game a client wanted me to do that, like exactly, and I was like, all right.
We'll do it. Who else?
So I have a bit of a different question. Is there Just lost it. Just lost it.
And it's gone.
Maybe he'll come back.
I'll come back.
He'll come back.
Questions are prohibited.
Thank you. Backtracking to your to like going to voice acting in anime or in video gaming, do you guys get any kind of creative liberties if things are like really not panning out, or you know, the creative team, you know, that is supposed to be doing the scripting or anything like that, if it's just really not coming out the way they kind of idea, you know, they idolize it, do you get any kind of creative say in it, or?
Well, in terms of, we can't change the story or anything like that.
Right, but like you get to say, like, you know, if things aren't panning out, like, you know, they're looking to take a second look at it and say, like, you know, this is not the like if for localization, for instance.
For, you know, from localizing from, you know, from Japanese to English or anything like that, you know, they're trying to get a line to fit, and the lines.
Oh yeah.
You know, the initially the line they have is like, this is just not working out. This is not what we wanted. Do you guys get any kind of creative say to say like, well, you know, what if we said it this way, or what if we present the line this way? Do you guys get any kind of flexibility or say in that, like during the recording process?
It depends on the director that you're working with, and because some directors are a lot more open to the collaborative process on that front than others.
A lot of times the director will say, okay, let's try this. Like they'll do a little
Yeah.
rewrite. And a lot of times, like especially for video games, we have people like the reps from the localization team in the room. So a lot of times they will be the ones, like if they hear, you know, because sometimes they'll write
Yeah.
something or this or that, and it'll seem good on paper, and then when they hear the actor say it, they'll be like, you know what, that's not as like clear of context as we were hoping. Can we do this rewrite? Or sometimes they will do an alt and say, we're not sure which one we want to use, like which one will be closer to translation, this or that. So they'll have us do like multiple versions.
I will say that with a lot of especially anime and live action dubs that I've worked on within the past year or so, I've gotten a lot bolder about speaking up and saying, hey, what if we did it this way instead? And sometimes they're receptive to it, and sometimes they say, no, what we did was fine, we're gonna move on. But most of the time, most of the directors are willing to humor us on that front, and as long as our ideas don't suck, they continue to humor us.
The thing that drives me crazy, and this was not the case in Nier, I feel like the localization for Nier was awesome. It was handled with a lot of care, but you know, occasionally I've worked on other projects where the biggest like gripe that I have with a line is when I look at it and it's a very, very like direct translation, and I'm like, people don't talk like this. And it's very hard as an actor to take a line like that and interpret it and sound like you're speaking to someone if you're using words or terminology that kind of character just wouldn't say.
A lot of times on lines like those, I just record it the way that I think it should be and go, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. And they go, no, that's okay, it's better. Yeah,
Come out.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh,
Did
no,
you
no,
have
no,
more?
that's good.
Oh, okay.
Any other
All
questions?
right.
I like that mask, by the way.
Nice.
Next.
Thanks, friendo.
Can I buy something from you? What are you selling?
You have a question.
Oh no, a meal with a kazoo is not something I want to see ever.
Oh boy. Question.
So this is from Kira. Could you say some of your favorite JoJo quotes in 2B's character?
I feel like those things are so like opposite. Okay.
So different.
Do you have any examples? Like, I'm trying to think, because a lot of them, 2B would say them in such a serious manner that it would just be like hilarious. Like, I'm going to fix that spaghetti or something, you know? Yeah, like, 9S, do you remember how many breads you've eaten in your life?
I'm sorry, what's wrong with you, ma'am?
I guess I need some maintenance.
So I had a question about your voice acting. How long are the recording sessions typically, and how stressful would they be the longer they get?
For games, normally 2 to 4 hours. For Nier, at least for me, probably for you too, we would normally go in for 4-hour sessions at a time because we had so much dialogue to record.
Yeah.
Some games I've done, because they have to book us for a 2-hour minimum. At least that's the standard for video games.
Well, they have to
in
pay
LA.
us for a 2-hour minimum.
Right. So the sessions.
They don't
will be
use
at
us for the
least
full 2 hours. Yeah, I think it's usually about 4-hour chunks. It depends on if your schedule's pretty, like, for example, I'm doing a lot of travel this month, and I have a project that's recording that has a deadline, like at the end of this coming week or something, and I have more than 4 hours of work to do, and I only have one day to cram it all in. So I've got 8 hours of recording to do on Monday when I get back into town. But we do take breaks. So we'll go for usually an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours if you're really pushing it. And then we'll take 10, 15 minutes to just relax and drink some water.
Drink coffee in my case, because I'm a bad example.
Okay, so this is for Kira. How is it working on a bridge series as opposed to other stuff? Because I know I saw you, I think it was in Helsinga Bridge, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Kira Buckland. So,
I'm in our Final Fantasy mission abridged.
yeah, so how is that like different than, or is it the same as like doing stuff for anime? Is it any different or?
Normally you'd think it would be kind of similar in the sense that, you know, sometimes you're doing things like there's visuals or whatever, but in the case of a bridge series, at least for Team 4-Star, they have like video editors, so we don't have to like do anything to picture. At least I didn't when I recorded my lines, and usually one of the guys will like direct me. I'll just go. Now I have my own booth, but that was a really recent thing, so I would go over to my friend's house because he had a recording booth, and we just Skype them in and they direct. One thing that I think is kind of specific to a bridge series is a lot of times there's specific comedic timing, like the way they write the lines, they're kind of meant to be delivered a certain way in order to land the joke. So a lot of times I do ask for line reads from the director for a bridge series, or they will give them, and that's like a common thing because it's like, well, you imagine this line said a certain way when you write it, so I want to make sure I'm giving you that, essentially. Whereas like with games and anime, I mean, sometimes we get line reads, but definitely not as much.
What friend's house did you go into?
Xander's.
Oh,
yeah.
Just curious. Next question.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Have you guys ever have a chance to meet Yoko Taro?
Oh, somebody already asked that question earlier. No, we didn't.
No.
Sorry. We wish.
Would you guys be able to handle it?
I would like freak out. Okay, I met one of like my favorite game creators. Do any of you guys know Guilty Gear? Yes. Okay, that's like my favorite fighting game series, and I met the creator of it, Daisuke Ishiwatari, at AX a few years ago, and because he was a guest there, and I was cosplaying as Dizzy, one of the characters from the game, and he looks up and he's like, wow, and I'm like, and you're trying to like be composed and calm, and I'm just like, and I asked him what his favorite Queen song was because he's also really into classic rock, as is obvious from his games.
Next question.
What was your guys' reaction to the part of the game where a bunch of machines were jumping into the lava and saying, "Become as gods"?
I mean, there comes a point where it's like nothing surprises you anymore.
Yeah.
In this game. But did you guys see that story going around on Twitter where there was like a security robot, I think it was in Washington, D.C., and it like threw itself into a fountain, and everyone was just like, become as gods?
I don't think, I was not expecting that particular, I mean, I like Kira said, there's a point where nothing's too surprising with a Yoko Taro game.
But I know sometimes you're gonna go, can you stop blowing yourself up because I'm taking damage?
Oh! Woo, spooky.
This cannot continue.
Yeah, but I was not expecting, because I don't know if you had any dialogue in indicating that was happening.
Oh yeah, that's
You
another
did,
thing
right?
that I want to point out. I can't remember, but one of the things I want to point out is when we're recording a game, a lot of times we only know the parts that our character is in. If it's relevant to our performance, they will give us context for like, okay, so then, you know, this happens and then you come back in. But sometimes like we don't get, so, you know, for the part of the game that 2B is not in, I didn't know a lot of the stuff that happened until I went through and played it myself. So a lot of that actually was surprising to me, and some people are like, oh, but you worked on this. It's like, yeah, but we only see like the scenes that we're in.
We only see the parts that we need to know.
And we don't see what's happening visually unless it's a cutscene. We just see our lines on a page.
Another example, without spoiling, is there was a message from 2B to 9S that is recorded. Everybody who's played it knows what knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I didn't know that was in there until I got to it in the game, and it
See, I knew because I recorded it.
Yeah.
It's still like, if people ask me to like do that, it's still like just, it hurts so bad.
It's a gut punch. Who else?
Are things different for you as VAs post-strike?
Are things different post-strike? Well, we're auditioning for games again, which is nice.
A lot of games, to be honest, are not union even out in California. I'll just say that.
I think the strike got everything that it was going to get for actors at this point in time. For those who don't know, SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents actors in film and television and video games and basically everything that's recorded.
So sorry.
We were on strike for almost a year against the biggest 11 video game publishers, Activision and EA and Warner Brothers and others, and over vocally stressful sessions. There's a lot of shouting in video games, and we wanted limits. We wanted to limit those types of sessions to 2 hours. We wanted more transparency. We wanted to know when we were going in, if we were going to have a lot of shouting. We wanted to know what the content of the game was, you know, if it was going to be something particularly graphic. Because a lot of times we don't even know the name of the game until it comes out. Mm-hmm. Even when we're in the studio working on it, they're so tight-lipped about, they're worried about leaks, that they don't want to tell even the people working on the project what they're working on sometimes. So we wanted more information on that front, and we wanted back-end residual payments, because for actors, when we work on if you're an on-camera actor and you do a movie or a TV show, you get a little piece of the pie on profits on those projects, and video games are about the only or close to the only medium that SAG-AFTRA represents where that's not a thing. And it was kind of a jarring of worlds, because video games are a crossover between entertainment and technology, and in the technology sector, residual payments are just not a thing. So that was the big sticking point in the strike, and finally resolved it almost a year later. And we did not get the back-end residuals, but we did get a bonus structure of some sort, and they're still negotiating on the whole vocally stressful situation.
Annoying, but
which is a little bit annoying.
But I know, I mean, I do see things from the developer's point of view as well, and the people who,
Yeah.
you know, I have friends who work in games, and they're doing like 70, 80-hour weeks during crunch time, so I definitely
Sure.
see things, and I think it just needs to be better conditions for them as well.
Yes,
like,
it
all
absolutely
around.
does.
But
And I think-
actors' unions don't have any control over
I
what
think
those do.
I think this strike laid some important groundwork for that potential But until I do think that until they get the compensation that they deserve, it's not going to go beyond what we got. And actually, the resolution for the strike is still, I think voting just finished for the union to vote on whether or not we were accepting the terms that we came to. But I think it's going to pass, and I think that's hopefully it's the last we have to do that. Anyway, that was a long tangent. Sorry. More questions.
Yes. Were there any side characters that really stuck out to you that you really liked overall?
Yeah.
I like Jackass. Jackass is one of my favorites. I don't know.
I'm trying to think. Just some of the random machines that you meet. Like the philosopher and like... Oh, I mean, I don't think this really counts as a side character, but I do love Emil.
Yeah. I would classify Emil as a little bit more central. Or maybe that machine that's locked away in his hut and you have to hack into. I like that one too. I don't know.
When it comes to voice acting, do you have any tips that would help the actors better connect with their characters?
Tips to better connect with your characters as an actor.
I mean, I guess like one of the things that I do is I try to always be aware of like who the character is talking to and like what the relationship is with that character, you know, because for example, if 2B is talking to 9S, whom she obviously has more of a connection with, than to like, you know, random machine or, you know, this or that, or when she's talking to like Adam or, you know, this or that, it's obviously like she feels differently about these different characters. And even, you know, a character like her that doesn't show a whole lot of emotion throughout most of the game, she's still going to have a slightly different like attitude or feeling. So I guess I try to like keep that in mind, if that helps.
I think this is kind of diverging from your question a little bit, but if you're interested in doing voice acting, I think it's pretty important that you take acting classes. First and foremost, just acting in general. Get experience with playing pretend.
And really like trying to get into the head of your character. I know some people try to put themselves in that situation, but that doesn't always work for me because, you know, the way that we react as
might be different from the way that the character
exactly.
does.
It's, you know, if you're playing a character that's opposite of your own personality type, which totally happens, it's like, well, you can think, how would I react in this situation? But that's not how 2B would react, you know, that's not how 9S would react, stuff like that.
One of the tricks with commercial voiceover that I think applies to any sort of voiceover, but it's a big trick for commercial voiceover because you're kind of thinking abstractly, but you have to answer yourself 3 or 4 questions. Who am I? Who am I talking to? Why am I talking to them? And where are we?
Yeah, everything should have a motivation behind it, even if it's something really simple, like your character's like, I'm hungry, or something dumb like that, right? It's like you're saying things for a reason. You're not just saying words off a page.
Yeah. So if you understand who the character is, if you understand, like Kira was saying, who they're talking to, why, and why you're talking, that character's talking to that person, and location plays a big part as well. If you're outside in a noisy environment, you're obviously going to sound a little differently than if you're, you know, right next to somebody in a quiet space. So that influences the performance as well.
I love, honestly, games like we got to do this on Nier, where we get to hear the Japanese line for each line that we do, because it's like, even if, you know, sometimes you're not copying it exactly, obviously, but just kind of hearing what the original actor did gives me a good baseline for, okay, this is how projected they are, this is kind of the general, like, tone of the line, that sort of thing.
Can absolutely help you to answer some of those questions. Next up!
So, with as few words as possible, can you explain Nier?
The first one or Automata?
Automata.
Okay. Few words as possible. Yeah, I know.
Become as gods.
Robots and androids and existential crisis. Maybe
Yeah.
something like
Or-
that.
Honestly, one of the things that 2B says I think is fitting, everything that lives is designed to end.
Yeah.
Which is really sad
Yeah,
way to look
it's
at
good too. Does that answer the question? Maybe? Okay. Next up.
What is the weirdest thing anybody's asked you to sign?
I've signed many 2B thighs and many 2 booty. I'm pretty open.
Not physical.
No, like on a body
Like-
pillow. Yeah. I'm pretty open. You know, I come from the internet, so I'm pretty open about what I'll sign. We're doing a signing in the autograph hall after a panel. If you want to bring
Right
your
after.
waifu pillows, I will sign them for you.
Yeah, I've signed a body pillow. I've signed.
That was my friend's.
Yeah.
She was like, "Do you think Kyle would sign it?" I'm like, "Kyle's
Yeah.
gonna sign it."
The same signing. We had a group of cosplayers come through, and one of them was dressed as Adam, and he didn't have any pockets or anything on his costume. All he had was his prop apple. So he had me sign, and it was a real apple. So he had me sign that.
I thought you were gonna say, "Oh, he had me sign his chest or something."
No, he had me sign his apple, and
Yeah.
yeah. Next up. No. They just have to turn it on for you. Go ahead.
So what were your first impressions of 2B and 9S, seeing how the first scene with you guys is, go ahead, leave me behind. Okay, sure. And then she just leaves.
Well, I will say my very first impression of 9S, you know, based on what I saw of him in the script and stuff, I was like, oh, he's gonna be like that really annoying, whiny sidekick character. So like sometimes like because I didn't really know a lot of the backstory yet and stuff when we first started working on it, a lot of my lines are like, okay, you sound too annoyed with him here, make it a little bit more gentle. And then later I was like, oh, 9S, I want to protect him. Like, what was your first impression of 2B, actually?
I would, well, early on in the game, it's definitely like, all right, she hates me. She hates everything. She's just on a mission. She's gonna do it, and that's it. But to be fair, I didn't even do that on purpose. John from the localization team, who was there in the room, gave a really good description of where things were headed before we even started recording, and that kind of set the tone for me a little bit. I mean, I knew 9S wasn't always going to be what he is at the start of the game, which is.
And that makes it even sadder, I feel like, when he was like, I'm going to be helping you with your mission. Heartbreaks. That's like so many moments in this game is just heartbreaks.
And I don't know how much he described of 2B for me, but I could, judging from where 9S was headed, I kind of gleaned that there was more to 2B than what I was seeing on the surface. And
I definitely had gotten that feeling as well, like there's a reason why she is the way she is.
How many people here watched our stream of the concert readings? The concert script readings? Only a couple of you. On my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Kyle McCarley, and now on YouTube as well. We did, there was a fan translation of the Japanese concert scripts where they had like a concert performance of just music from the game, and in between pieces of music, the Japanese actors came on stage and read scripts that Yoko Taro wrote that kind of fill in some gaps throughout the story and go a little bit beyond. Really good stuff.
Make sure you watch a reading of it after you've beaten the full game.
Yeah, don't watch it before you finish the game.
But it was really emotional for us. It was like very, because we were
Yeah.
just cold reading it and we're like,
But that gives you a lot more, even beyond what's in the game for both 2B and 9S, as well as A2 and the pods even.
also you get to hear, I'm gonna embarrass her, but shout out to Caitlin over there. You get to hear her awesome acting in it as well. And if you
Yeah.
guys watch the Hacker Clan streams, you've probably seen her on camera too.
That's my wife.
Sorry, so this was a little bit of like a two-parter in a way. So, did you guys try out the DLC with the special bosses that are on it? And without giving away, did you delete your save when you're done?
Okay.
Just curious.
We tried.
we did the DLC on. We'll go back to it at some point. I think we were a little bit underleveled for some of the DLC, so we didn't make it all the way through. We got pretty far.
I was just like, oh, what color can I make 2B's hair this time?
Yeah.
10 minutes.
And in terms of the save file, I cheated. Yeah, I had a USB stick that I hate hackers. Yeah.
I remember after you admitted to that on stream, my best friend texted me and said, what's Kyle's favorite snack? Cheetos.
Of course I'm gonna hack it. Hacker man. But I was glad I did because we ended up, I was supposed to start an original Nier stream the next time that I did the stream, and surprised to find that I couldn't get the PS3 to work the same way that I could with the PS4 for streaming. So we impromptu just did some joke endings on Automata, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had had to start the game all over again.
I got one of the joke
It was
endings
for
by
you guys.
accident when I think it was like W or Y, I can't remember, but it's like when you're playing as 9S and then you accidentally just like fall off the thing in the beginning and you're like, oh, okay, well there's an ending, cool.
When you have about 12 different directions you can go and only one of them will advance the story.
Yep.
Next question.
I was curious, you guys mentioned that you're unionized. How does compensation work for when you sign up for a project? Do they like pay you hourly? Does your agent, you work out a contract for, you're going to be in the booth X amount of hours or X amount of days? Is there like an hourly rate, or is it based on how many years you've been doing it?
It's usually an hourly rate, and for most of us, definitely for where we're at our stage, at this stage in our career, there's a union minimum, and we get paid the minimum. There are some people who are very well established that will get double scale or triple or whatever. Celebrities, obviously, they're going to negotiate much higher rates of pay.
But generally, for all intents and purposes, yeah, it's, everyone gets the same, it's hourly.
Yeah.
You don't always know how many hours it's going to take because it depends, like, oh, how many rewrites are there? How many retakes do you have to do? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So it's very much just kind of like,
Yeah, and it's usually an hourly rate. There are some other mediums, like I do a lot of, I do a lot of audiobooks, and those are paid on a per finished hour rate as opposed to how many hours it takes you to get to that finished count. So, but for the most part, it's hourly, how much time you spend in the booth.
I didn't get to watch the stream, so I don't know kind of what you guys did or did not do. On a 0 to 100% basis for the ending, the credit scene, how far did you get without asking for help?
Without asking for help? Pretty far.
Yeah.
I think I got I think I got past the part where Square Enix's name comes up in the big bold letters.
I know what that is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I kind of know what you're talking
Yeah, I think I got past that and then kept on having to go back and passing it again and again.
I always wondered, what about the first people who beat the game? Who helped them? Do you ever stop and think about that?
There was a video that went out on YouTube of a guy who spent like 200 some odd hours just doing that end credit sequence so that he could show that he could get through it without any help. It's doable. It's just not easy. I have 1 or 2 more questions. I don't know how much time we have.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Dan. Do you guys have a favorite version of Weight of the World, the end credits song? Because there's like 3.
Chaos language.
Yeah.
The only one I really know how to sing though is the English version.
Yeah.
I should at least learn the Japanese version because I know a fair amount of the language, but
I really appreciate the fact that during the end credits you hear all 3 versions.
And then it's pixelated too.
Yeah, and then I think that's really cool. I don't know, I like them all. It's hard to pick. But yeah,
my
Chaos
goal
Language
at like
is pretty
some
cool.
cons some days that they'll let me sing Weight of the World for something.
Next question.
And if we could get, if we have a lot of questions, could we get people who have not asked a question yet, just to make sure that everyone gets a chance?
Here's a quick one. Pod 042 or 153?
They're both precious children.
They are. How do you pick one?
I mean, I guess I'll say pod 042 because tubes.
All right, 153 because 9.
I actually, someone was dressed as a pod at Anime Expo, and I got to pet the pod. And we took a picture.
You saw a
and,
picture of that.
Yeah, and then they posted it on Twitter and was like, oh, I didn't even realize that was like Tubi's English voice actors that came up and pet me at the con.
That's funny. That's awesome. One more question. Maybe 2 more. We'll see.
Are most recording sessions done solo, or do you guys ever done group sessions to get more work done?
Solo. We didn't even hear what each other
Yeah.
did until when we were playing through the game ourselves after it came out.
All of Nier was solo. All anime is solo. Almost all video games are solo. There's some video games where you'll do motion capture on a stage with other actors, but those are few and far between. There's original like Western animation stuff where the animation comes after the voices are recorded. Some of that is done in groups, but more and more often now, one actor at a time, and you just have to trust that the director can tell you what's going on.
And that they can make everything to where it'll sound like we're talking to each
Right.
other in the game. So, you know, shout outs to Wendy Lee. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar
Yeah.
with her work. She directed Nier Automata, and I really felt like in the majority of it, it didn't sound like we were talking
Yep.
to each other, even though we didn't get to be
And
there
it's,
physically.
and it's especially tricky with video games because so much stuff is recorded out of order,
Mhm.
out of like non-sequential. You know, when
Yeah,
we're doing
we
all those
definitely
side
did that
quests
for
and stuff, and like it's all disjointed, so we have to try and make it make sense together.
Is it all done in a centralized location?
Yes. Yeah, it's usually all in one studio. Yeah.
I was curious, was the process any different due to really 9S and 2B being essentially they're both main characters, instead of one being the side?
I don't think there's really a whole lot of difference in the approach to how you record like a playable character as opposed to an NPC or something. It's just there's more dialogue if you're in the game more.
Yeah.
But I think the approach is pretty much the same to how you.
And every character is important to the story, so even if somebody
Yeah.
was playing a little side character or something, that's still important.
We did have battle efforts that probably a lot of other characters in the game didn't have, but that was maybe half an hour of recording compared to, you know, all the dialogue and stuff. So I really don't think it changes much. Are we out of time? Maybe I think we're out of time.
Okay, so real quick before you guys take off, we will be doing an autograph session half an hour from now. It's going to be in the autographs hall.
We're gonna head over there now, and we'll probably start early.